Hello there. I just wanted to get back, do a quick video, mainly to apologize for not responding to all the comments on my last video. I've been very busy. We're in the middle of making a film regarding trafficking. I talked to Joe Kenda this morning. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Big problem, trafficking. He's well aware of it. Hey, I'm trying to edit this in. I want to give a shout out to Clutch, coming to my rescue right away after that last video. Thank you, bud. Your heart's in the right place. But I wanted to do this video, again, to apologize for not having time to respond to all of those comments that you're making. Usually I respond to just about every comment. And 95% of what you're saying I agree with, and you agree with me. I think the only issue is whether someone's YouTube investigation could ever end up in the courtroom. And several people think that that would never be allowed, that it has to be relevant, obviously. Well, if you've done a lot of research and you've got all those, the opportunity, the motive, the look, all those things going in your investigation of your person or persons of interest, I'd say that's relevant. So that's my whole point. So for those that challenge that, I've responded to a couple of you, and I respect all of you. Everybody has a right to their opinion and their own style. I just wanted to point out some possible issues that could come up once we do get to court with the arrested party or parties. Now, if I could give you maybe just a couple of examples. I explained in that last video that the defense has one goal, and that's to put reasonable doubt in one juror's mind. And they go to extremes. They use trickery. I've already said all this. Let me give you a couple of examples of some things that have happened, good or bad, in the courtroom. Some that just come to mind. A couple of them that I was involved in, and another one that's quite famous. And I'll move through this as quickly as I can. The first one I'm going to talk about is in Colorado Springs, we started seeing these what we called crack houses. And they were fortified houses with lookouts, security, police radios, heavily armed, you name it. And they would sell the crack, cocaine, through a mail slot in a door, which was fortified. So a customer would come up, bang on the door, tap on the door, whatever. They would order up like a vending machine. They'd send their money through the mail slot, and out would come the little bag of rocks. So it was new to most of the country. This was something that, for some reason, was big in Colorado Springs. And so one of our first trials, we kind of staged something that I guess we didn't think all the way through. But the prosecutor actually told the defense that this was going to be brought in. So when the prosecution is presenting his case on this rock house and the guy that ran it, who was on trial, when we're presenting our case, our plan, and the defense knew it was coming, was at the appropriate time, the door to the courtroom was going to open, and the tactical unit was going to carry in the door from this house. We'd removed it from the house. We had the tactical guys come in. They had it set up on rollers, brought it up in front of the court, in front of the jury, and one of the tactical guys was going to take the stand and explain how difficult it was to get in and talk about the fortification and all those things. Well, the defense didn't say anything. He didn't object or anything. But the judge sent the jury back to the jury room. And he scolded the prosecutor and scolded me, basically, because I was the one, it was my case, and I'm sitting with the prosecutor. And told everybody else to leave. All the public had to leave. So, bottom line is, he said that was too shocking for the jury to see, which is ridiculous. That's what we lived with and fought with on the street. But it had never been presented like that before. So what we thought was a very dramatic way of showing these doors backfired on us, and there was a mistrial. The judge declared a mistrial. Once the defense heard that the judge didn't like that, he asked for a mistrial. It was given. So months later, we had to do that trial over without the door. So that's a time when something was not allowed by a judge. I think today that would be allowed. It was just so new and so shocking for the average person, the average citizen or juror, that the judge didn't allow it. I think the judge was shocked more than anybody. So that's an example of an extreme that didn't work. Now, real quickly, I want to talk about a couple that I was buying drugs from, and they had a fairly nice home, and I'd been in their home, I think, probably 3 times buying cocaine from them. They weren't married, but they'd been living together for years. And the male half was on trial. And the prosecution presents his case, explain how I met up with these people and how I finally visited with them, and that I think I was there 3 times, and that I bought cocaine, and that both the male and the female were involved in the negotiations, and the female handled some of the money, but the male was on trial right then. Well, when the defense gets up, he goes into, isn't it true that my defendant here, John Doe, asked you when you were in his house if you were a cop? Is that true? And I said, yes, that's true. And he says, and what did you tell him? And I told him in court, I'm under oath, I told him I wasn't a cop. And he says, so you lied. And there was no objection at that point from the prosecutor, which kind of upset me. I kind of looked over like, you going to object to this? But he let it go. So he turns to the jury and kind of looks at him and points at me and says, so you lied to my defendant? Yes or no? And I had to say yes. So then he goes, and then the female, and he names her, Susie Smith. She was in the house on one of these visits, right? And actually she was there on all of them. And isn't it true that Susie asked you if you were a cop on one of those visits? And I said, yes, that's true. And did you tell her that you were a cop? And I said, no. Did you tell her you were not a cop? And I said, that's correct, yes. So you lied again. Now at that point, the prosecution objected. And there was a few moments of silence, and the judge calls both the defense attorney and the prosecutor up to his bench. And they do the little whisper thing, and they discuss things. And I knew this would go in our favor because I knew what the law was. So after they have the little discussion, the judge turns to the jury. And he explains to the jury that when you work undercover as a police officer, you don't give up your identity. That's why it's called undercover work. And so for Detective Freeman to tell John Doe here that he was not a cop is completely appropriate. There's plenty of case law to back it. So he basically goes through all this with the jury, explaining that that's my job and it's totally okay. It's not against the law. It's not against policy. It's been through court before, etc. And the jury is kind of smiling, almost all of them, and looking at me like, I know, we watch TV, we know this stuff. So the defense kind of made a fool of himself, even trying to bring this up. So the judge told them to disregard the fact that I said I lied about being a cop, that it was not against any policy, it was not against the law, and they were to totally disregard that part of my testimony. So I felt pretty comfortable. We went on, finished the trial. But in closing arguments, which went on for quite a while, when the defense was doing his closing, he made a point of bringing up, and don't forget Detective Freeman lied to my defendant, John Doe, and his girlfriend, Susie Smith, lied to both of them and denied being a cop. Now, there's no objection at that point. They usually don't object during closing arguments. You just kind of have your go at it. You can fabricate anything you want if you're the defense. They use any kind of trickery, as I've talked about before. Anyway, the judge doesn't throw out there again, hey, you're supposed to disregard that. He just let it go, and so did the prosecutor. That's just kind of the way court goes. So he planted that seed again that I lied to these people. Well, I wasn't too worried about it. The judge told him not to, to disregard it. Well, once the jury went out to deliberate, they were out for like 6 or 7 hours into the evening. And we started worrying, like, what the heck could go wrong with this? This is a hand-to-hand buy, 3 buys, and you got the money, and we recovered some of the money when we searched the house, some of our money, basically marked money. This was a cut-and-dried case. Why is it taking so long? Anyway, finally they came back with a guilty verdict. Then we often go into a back room and meet with a jury after the verdict has come in to learn what could we have done differently, that kind of thing. And they kind of sometimes have additional questions. Sometimes the judge lets us answer those questions, and many times he or she will not let us answer those questions, even off the record. So we go to this little private conference room, and the prosecutor kind of says, so may I ask why it took so long to come back with this obvious guilty verdict? And the head juror said, well, we had one person on the jury that didn't like the fact that Detective Freeman lied to this defendant and his girlfriend. And we all tried to explain to this person that the judge said that we were to disregard that there was nothing illegal about it, etc., etc. But it took them all these hours for him to finally get through his head that it was legal, it was not against any policies, it wasn't unethical or anything like that, that was my job. And finally, I guess the light went on and he agreed, okay, let's vote again, and he voted guilty into that one. But if he had refused and wanted to acquit, wanted to go with not guilty on this defendant, we would have had a hung jury, and we'd have to come back and do that trial over. So there's an extreme that I wanted to throw in. The O.J. Simpson case, everybody's pretty familiar with that. I want to talk about if the glove don't fit, you have to acquit. That may not be word for word. But obviously this glove, this bloody glove that had been recovered by law enforcement, was going to be tried on in court in front of the jury by O.J. Simpson. And they made a point. If the glove don't fit, you have to acquit. Well, if you go on YouTube and just put that comment in, the O.J. Simpson glove try-on, or whatever you want to call it, O.J. Simpson trying on the glove in court, something like that, you're going to see the video of this. Well, first of all, I don't have any evidence gloves here, but if you put on latex gloves, especially if they're a little larger than normal, which it appears these might have been, O.J. puts on these latex gloves. Can't contaminate the leather gloves that he's going to try on. Well, if you watch that video, all I can say is, after playing football, O.J. was supposed to have been an actor. He wasn't a very good one, and he certainly didn't do a very good acting job putting on these gloves, although I guess it worked. Because he looks like a little kid in a pie eating contest, and he loves sugar and he can't wait. He's going to win the pie eating contest. If you watch him in his chair, this is O.J. He can't wait to try on those gloves because he knows it's going to be difficult to get him on because they practiced ahead of time, not with that glove, but with a similar glove. So he knew how it was going to go, and if you watch, he is so anxious to get up there and just show that I can't hardly get these on. Plus he has arthritis from broken fingers and those kind of things from football. And there's all kinds of reasons that he had trouble getting those gloves on. But again, that's trickery in the courtroom. He is just so excited to try those on because he knows he's going to put on quite a show. And it apparently worked. So enough of that. I'm just trying to point out that the defense can do a lot of funny things in the courtroom. And we're talking about YouTubers being investigators and having such solid theories that those could be questioned in court. That was the only point I made from that last video. So I think we've covered that. For those of you that disagree with me, we just have to agree to disagree. I respect all of you. We're all in this for the same purpose, to get justice for whatever case it might be. Joe Kenda from the Homicide Hunter with Lieutenant Joe Kenda called me this morning. We chatted for about an hour, mostly just old-time talk, talking about, shop talk, cop talk kind of stuff. And he's reading my book, which I can't wait to see what he thinks of that. But I mentioned some of these cases and the true crime community is looking into. And he says, yeah, it's a big thing right now, not just on YouTube, but all over the country. True crime is big on television and all that. Obviously, he's made a lot of money on it. And it was true crime. His stories are true cases, and I was involved in some of them. But I pointed out the Delphi case with Abby and Libby. He'd never heard of it, didn't know anything about it. I mentioned to him that a lot of people in the YouTube community feel that local law enforcement might have a little corruption going on, or have in the past, and the politicians in that area, Carroll County. And he pointed out that this is a major problem across the country, that in a lot of rural areas, small communities, that families control everything. And I think we see some of that in the Delphi and Carroll County area. I think Greeno has hinted at that. I know Matt Sullivan has. And I think they're right. I think there's some fishy stuff that went on there. Let's just keep the faith. And Joe Kenda says hi, by the way. And let's keep the faith that the right people are working on it. Not necessarily the local Delphi law enforcement people, but others higher up. I feel confident that it's being worked appropriately, and I still have faith that this is going to come to an end fairly quickly. So, I'll get off my soapbox again. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I've been very busy. I'm doing this short movie on human trafficking, and it's going very well. We're about halfway through filming. So this may be my last video for a while, because then there's editing, and I'm going to try to get a vacation in. So stay at it, and hopefully we have some arrests on some of these cases, especially the Abby and Libby case. So keep the faith, keep praying. I'll talk to you guys later.